All right. The veteran's name is Franklin Surrat.
That's right, Franklin Wyatt Surrat.
They were born January 30th, 1937. They served in the U.S. Army during the Cold War. They achieved the rank of Staff Sergeant. We are recording this on March 23rd, 2014. I am John Riechter, and I am conducting the interview, No Relation. Thank you, Mr. Surrat, for sitting down with me.
Pleasure.
So, just to start off, you said you were born in Rowan County.
Yes, I was on the farm.
On the farm? How was life like growing up for you? Did you have siblings or?
I can, it was a lot of fun on the farm, because I've never been into city life, but we had access to the city, and friends that I made in the city. But on the farm, you had chores to do, okay? Now, we had no lights, okay?
Okay.
Had no lights, no indoor facilities.
Okay.
Okay. So that's meaning we'd have to use an outhouse. I'd be right frank, and the Serum Roebuck catalog, and that was essentially it as far as the basics. My mother was a housewife. She never did public work. My dad was with Alcoa. He was the electrician for the powerhouse dam.
Okay.
That generated power for the aluminum company in Baden, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so he was in charge of the electrical part of it. And there were 3 dams, and it was High Rock Dam, Falls, Narrows Dam. And that generated and also fed power back to Duke Power Company when it needed to be assisted with power too.
Okay.
So that's basically what my dad did, and then he did also farmed for his dad.
Okay.
Now his dad was Jacob Love Surrat, okay? He lived within 2 weeks of being 103 years of age when he died.
Oh wow.
So he was a joy to be around to hear his stories. So it's all farm, and my chores was to feed all the animals, build troughs, that we'll feed them in and take care of them. And while my dad was working swing shift, he worked daylight, evening shift, and night shift, and he would change out every week, a different shift.
Okay.
And so I was the youngest of the 3 children.
Okay.
My brother Don was 10 years older than me. My sister was 5 years older than me. So when I was born, my mother always said, that was all I wanted to have. I got what I need.
Yep. So you were the baby of the group.
I was the baby of the group.
Now,
So, but anyway, I remember when the lights were turned on. Rural Electric, REA, which REA's got establishment here. Matter of fact, I invested in it when I was over on Eden Terrace Extension.
Okay.
And we had REA service, and you become automatically an investor. Okay.
Okay.
I've been getting dividends every year after that. So I really paid dividends.
That's awesome.
So that's something, Anyway, so my mother woke me up. I hadn't even started school yet, okay? This was in, war had already started.
Okay.
Which was the war had started in 42, I think, as far as when we were invaded and bombed in Hawaii.
Yep.
And so anyway, she said, wake up. And back then they had a strain coming down. They didn't have a wall switch, okay? To turn the lights on overhead.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's about it until I started the school and everything.
Okay.
And,
Now you went to. I'm guessing you went to finished up high school, and did you?
I finished up high school. Yeah. We had grade school there, and we had to carry our own lunch. Okay. We didn't have cafeteria type feeding. So it was all country. I remember my mother would fix me tomato sandwiches, and by the time we got ready to eat lunch, they get soggy, you know?
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine that? So, so we changed the diet around, you know, where it would be more suitable to carry the bag. But I graduated from Rockwell High School in 1955. Yeah.
Okay. And did you enter the military, or what? I guess what got you interested in the military?
I was always interested in uniforms. Okay.
Okay.
I thought that was a very, very honor to wear a soldier's uniform. Okay, and I really followed the Look magazine, Life magazine. That was weekly. I couldn't wait to get to the Life magazine and get to see the pictures direct from the war front. Gabriel Riechter, and listen to news, and I remember my dad would invite his friend, neighbor over because they didn't have electricity. It was a battery-powered radio. We listened to Gabriel Riechter in the evenings together.
Okay.
and Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, you know, giving news back then too.
Oh yeah.
And Cronkite. Yeah, that's right. And so we'd all be together, and I would listen to news. I got interested in it. My dad gave me a quarter to buy the stamps to develop a war bond.
Okay.
When it became $20, I got a $20 war bond. Okay.
Oh, cool.
And there's a lot of things like that, and got me all interested in the war. And I was really loved guns because I grew up with guns. Okay.
Okay.
And so I was in grade school, and my dad allowed me to go out and squirrel hunt by myself.
Oh wow.
So I had my friends. We'd get to go together, like a trust, you know.
Yeah.
And we hunted, and so I got interested in the World War II.
Okay.
I was old enough to understand it.
Okay. And did you join the military straight out of high school, or how did you become involved?
It was 1950. It was 1961.
Okay.
I was already married.
Okay.
And I chose to go to take the branch of reserve rather than be drafted. Okay.
Okay.
So I avoided the draft and took the 6 years training in the armed forces and the infantry and office management
Okay.
of the services of the branch I was in, which is 108th Division out of Concord, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so I was recognized as I was the squad leader in my group, and so I learned how to do the marching because I could do it real well. Okay. And back then, if someone got out of step, if they had to, we could call them they'd have to run around the marching group, okay, until we tell them to stop. But now they won't allow you to do that anymore. So the sergeant will have to run it with him if he calls it.
Oh, wow.
Because it was because of it was not right, you know, as far as the rules anymore.
Now, what did you do your basic training in Concord or in Charlotte?
No,
or?
I did my basic training in Fort Jackson.
Okay. And how long were you down in Fort Jackson for?
I was down there for what? I believe it was about 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was life like for you going through basic training? Was it?
It was interesting because we got married in '58.
Okay.
And so '61 is when I went into the service, and so being away from my wife for the first time, it was really hectic, you know. And then when we went into Fort Jackson, then we had that year that I went, we had the flu epidemic in the group, and it got so bad, you know, that you get if they caught you spitting on the ground, you know, it sounds bad, but the phlegm that you're coughing up and all that, and some people were trying to avoid being recycled in the training and everything, and I had 2 friends that got recycled
Oh wow.
So because they got so sick,
Hmm.
and I was determined not to, and I didn't. So I made it.
That's good.
So we made it all the way through the training part, and then I joined the unit in Concord after the 6 months, and then every summer we'd have 2 weeks training at base at Fort Jackson,
Okay.
and they would go in our training. So I was taught to teach first first aid,
Okay.
battlefield first aid, and I had groups as large as 350, and recruits. Most of them were Cubans, okay, because this is during the Cuban Crisis,
Okay.
and we were trying to train them and getting ready for the invasion of Cuba.
Hmm.
And since when President Kennedy withdrew with the attack on Cuba, okay, from invasion,
Yeah.
decided to pull back and gave the threat that they're blowing the ships, Russian ships out of the Bay Area of Cuba.
Uh-huh.
They backed off,
Mhm.
and so that was his worst dream in the world, because he regretted that, you know, that he should have went ahead and let the invasion go. He didn't get
Yeah.
the support, so he didn't get a very good mark on that. But anyway, I had to teach Cubans. Now they let on that they didn't understand English, at basic English, okay?
So
But they knew more than they let you know, okay? It's sort of hard to teach them, you know, and
Uh-huh.
make them to understand. And we did the whole, it was about a 2-hour presentation, because everybody participated in the how to save a life on the battlefield.
Mhm.
And some of the things, the first thing you had to do was stop the bleeding, treat for shock, and when you raise your feet, you know, heighten you raise your feet up, and you arch your head back so you don't say. You know what swallowing the tongue means?
Where it
The
goes
tongue
back.
just drops back, what it does
Uh-huh.
in the opening of your mouth here, and you raise the head back up like that. It draws the tongue back up
Mhm.
out of the track of your throat.
Interesting.
So you had to do all those things, and then you had to have the sterile bandages and everything. Sometimes you would have to give them mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. We taught them all to do that. We had generals coming in watching us give the presentation. We were told that we were in charge of our group. If anybody, even if the general interrupted our class, we had the right to ask him to leave. That was true.
Did you get to exercise that?
Yeah. But no, we never did. We never did get to exercise that direct order. Okay, that was there for our
Yeah.
knowledge. And the people that was setting up this thing, you know, where we would do the presentation and everything, that was more funny than anything else. It was kind of like Sergeant Snorkel, okay?
Uh-huh.
Those guys were characters. They've been there for a long time in the regular army.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, it was a joy, and it's probably mostly I enjoyed the whole thing. But I got got to know a lot of people, and it's very rewarding,
Yeah.
to go through this and helping somebody else save a life.
Now, when you were with the group up in Concord, what was daily life for you like, especially when you were with them and stationed with them?
Oh, we did the same thing with one another in our training program. So we were one of the top training reserve units in the Carolinas.
Okay. Did you have like a set? You said you were in the reserves at first. I guess did you?
Was it
did you
reserve the whole time?
Okay. Did you live like at home and?
Oh yeah, I lived at home.
Okay.
And we had weekend meetings.
Weekend meetings. Okay.
Yeah.
And then for the training that you would go, you said you went and did training down in Fort Jackson.
Yeah.
What was life like when you were doing that? Was it wake up every morning at 6 o'clock?
On a timely basis, okay. We had the morning report, and everything, And we get up at like 5:30 in the morning, and had a count for all the bodies, all the people, and we reported, made morning reports, and everybody was there and accounted for, and then we'd probably run for about a couple miles. We got in physical shape, good shape, and and that was the first 4 weeks, and then it went into the major part of your training in the last 8 weeks.
Okay.
So
Now, did you stay in Concord your entire military career, or the Concord area? Or?
I stayed. That was my headquarters.
Okay.
The whole 6 years.
Did you ever send you out and about, or do any traveling other than down to Fort Jackson with your
That was the only thing that we did as far as nationally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any, I guess, really fond memories, or anything that you look back and makes you chuckle from your time?
Oh yeah. It was a lot of fun and really rewarding. Okay. And I happen to be liked, and I love the things that we were required to do, and I made a point to do everything I was supposed to do, and be at the right place at the right time, and that was the whole thing. I was over my squad, and then I finally was promoted from squad leader to driving the general around on base. Okay. So I got a little bit more information and training from that too.
Okay.
So the general helped me a whole lot.
Were there any times during your service that you, I guess, obviously since it was during the Cold War, there was always tension going on. There's always...
During that time when we had to take an extra week of when the Cuban Crisis came up, we thought we were going to be brought in full time in the infantry, because it was, if we would have had invaded Cuba, we'd have been there for however long it would take to finish the job.
Now, what kind of prep did you have to do for, if I guess, since you were saying you felt like you were basically ready to go.
Ready to go. Yeah.
What kind of prep did you have to do? For that scenario, were you?
Oh, we did that in Concord, our base in Concord. We did that training there, and then on the weeks that we would go to Fort Jackson, we did the training, actually training the recruits, going wherever were needed, for their time in service.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Were there any times on base, on base where it was just like, just had some interesting things happen, or funny,
there's some funny things and sad things, and it was pretty mixed as far as the Association for Army and men. I got to know the sergeants and the officers, and they knew me by name and rank, and so I pretty much took the leadership in the whole thing. I guess that's the reason I enjoyed it. The fact, they allowed me to do some things, give me free time to go to town if I needed to go to town, with the guys. And then the wives would visit us allowed to visit us once in a while, and girlfriends. But I was the only one in the group that was married, so. Okay.
While you were on base, what did you think about the food? Were you a fan of the food?
Believe it or not, I was in the the regular Army base headquarters of Fort Jackson. Okay, so I was with the top men of the Fort Jackson. Okay, they were trained to train. The sergeants and drill sergeants and everything. So I could eat just like going to a restaurant. If I wanted 2 eggs or 3 eggs, sunny side up or medium over, I could get my eggs like I wanted them.
Okay.
So we were first class.
I was gonna say, you were living the life when it came to food.
I was living a life no one else had the opportunity to do.
Now, during your time, were you in charge of any like equipment, or were you issued any? I guess probably you were obviously issued a firearm.
Fort Jackson furnished all the equipment we need during
Okay.
the time of training when we were there for the 2-week basic.
Okay.
And we had our equipment back at the base at Concord.
Okay. I guess what kind of equipment were you in charge of?
This one had all administrative and training of first aid.
So it's just, I guess, like mostly just first aid equipment.
First aid equipment where you had the basic information and that you have. If you saw any movies, the John Wayne movies, you had the litter people, you had the guys of first aid, they were the one that would be called and they run out under fire. You're trying to save somebody's life, okay? And so you were taught those things to do, and we had to go through the training of those in real life, okay?
Yeah.
Not under fire, but like if it
hopefully
was
not under fire.
it's a little safer.
Yeah. Now, you said you were in the service for 6 years? What did you start to do as soon as you got out of your armed service?
Let's see. I think I went to work for the North Carolina Highway Patrol. It was the weight division of them, and I was there for probably 2 years, and then I went into office management with Johnson Motor Lines in the office there, and from there to Duff Norton Company and a credit manager.
Okay. Now, do you feel that your time within the military and within the Army helped you moving forward? With the things that you
confidence.
Do? Confidence.
Yeah. Built confidence in how to relate and communicate.
Okay. Do you still feel like that your military training helps you like through today?
It definitely. It taken out the guessing part, okay? And of course you always have a little anxieties at time, if it's something you never experienced and you don't want to make mistakes or whatever, but it certainly did give me a positive grounds to branch out and become a manager. And so I've become a credit manager at Duff Norton Company, and means when anything that we shipped or went out the door, I was responsible for bringing the money back, okay, payment of the goods. So, and then I went into sales part of it through collection agencies, and you know what they are, they're commercial and consumer type collections, and people like Georgia Pacific, was one of my, I had them for 40 years as a client, okay? And so I traveled from east to west. I had about 6 salespeople under me, and I trained them and worked with them. And you talk about an experience, that was an experience, okay? So enjoyable for the most part.
That's good.
I was in a blizzard of 77 in Buffalo. And that was something, and it was like 50 degrees below zero. So you were advised that if you went out, if you had to go out, make sure your ears were covered and everything. As soon as you walked out, if you had glasses on, your glasses would instantly frost over. Your mustache would freeze, and you would have to move your lips to break the ice on your mustache. It was a real experience I never had before in the snow.
Now, while you were with your group in Concord, did you make some friends and meet people that have continued to be part of your life?
We had a couples group that we formed. It was 4 couples in Charlotte, and it was a whole part of our reserve unit, okay? And we stayed together for a period of, I'd say about 10 years.
Okay.
And during the time of our still in the reserve as well as out.
Okay.
And then we moved here in Rock Hill from Charlotte.
Uh-huh.
We lived in Charlotte, and so we formed a couples thing here.
Okay.
For which I don't know if it's okay to say the names.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's the Dr. Anderson and
Okay.
Hal Anderson, you know,
Uh-huh.
Dr. Anderson, and Don Horse and Linda,
Okay.
and Wayne Thiessen.
So now it makes sense why you all sit together. at
Yeah,
church.
that's the reason
Okay.
we sit together all the time. So
Okay.
we've been together for 40 years.
Oh wow.
And
And-
some families don't stay together that long,
No.
you know.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
So we still, then how that would work would be like we hosted each other every month, okay?
Uh-huh.
You know, we take turns of hosting the group.
Okay.
So like, and my wife Norma she would do all the cooking for the whole group, you know, and then next month we'd do it from somebody else's
Okay.
house, okay, or the other group.
Yeah.
And so on, and make a rotation. And it's still that day, except we did one thing. It got to, because of the health
Mhm.
problems that our group had,
Mhm.
we decided to quit cooking for each other. We decided to go out to eat together, okay? So that's what we're doing now presently.
Oh, that's really awesome. That was really awesome. Now, say for instance, a family member of yours, or you know, somebody came to you and said, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, joining the reserves or doing something in the military. I guess first off, you know, what would you tell them, or would you have any advice for them, or you know,
For going, what?
for just say for you know, somebody around my age who was interested in going.
Oh, I would absolutely. I would recommend any young person that's. It's kind of hard to make that decision right now with all the problems we're having in the world, because you never know when it's going another.
Instance or incident or
Incident would happen, you know, and you'd be called in full time, you know. And if you're an officer under the group, you're always an officer until you die, you know.
Uh-huh.
So they could call you back in an emergency, you know, if they
Uh-huh.
needed you. So it might be another Iraq, or it might be another
Afghanistan, Vietnam,
Afghanistan or
something.
whatever, yeah.
Okay.
But I would still recommend it. It's something you'll always cherish, and it's very rewarding.
That's good. Just one or two more questions to kind of wrap things up. Do you, I guess you were telling me about the couples group that you were with. Do you still, I mean, keep keep tabs with the military, and you know, does your interest that started as a kid, is it still proliferated?
And my interest is still there.
Okay. And I guess another question kind of on top of that, with being an officer in the military, did that influence how you look at world politics, and how you how you keep up with the world? Do you look at things a little bit differently?
Well, you know, as the matter of fact, the armed forces is almost in the same position as I am. Okay, there's a whole lot of things you don't have control of.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do as required, or told or directed to do. So we may not like the way the government's approaching the situation right now, and which I don't like. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you represent your country from strength. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's gone down as far as strength, I think. And I hate to say this on wire, but that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we're cutting our armed forces now, and you just can't support and our freedom by not having the power to back it up.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with you on some of those points. And do you do you think the I guess for you, is the military kind of like the shining light that is America in a way,
I wouldn't take anything from my experience in armed forces, and it's a very rewarding experience for me, and it helped me in my life. Approach it the same way.
I should say any other any other experiences or things, any memorable moments that just stand out for you that really just kind of summed up your experience with the military, and something that you look back and say this is like my favorite moment or a time.
Well, my brother, older brother,
Mhm.
10 years, and he was the first person that went in to serve in the armed forces, and he was in the Navy. He got drafted, and so he was in Germany right at the end of the war, and he arrived when it ended.
Okay.
So he got to see a lot of the damage and people suffering and everything,
Mhm.
and so that was an experience for him. So when he came back, he was in the art. He graduated from Catawba College in Salisbury,
Uh-huh.
North Carolina, and so he decided he wanted to get into art. He was a very good artist, and so he decided to go to Pittsburgh Art School.
Okay.
And he failed to advise the draft board that he had moved. And when you do that, you automatically put yourself in open to be drafted again
Uh-huh.
after he was released from the Navy.
Okay.
And they said, well, we can't release you. You're gonna have to serve in the branch somewhere. He said, well, can I choose another branch of service? I said, sure. So he chose the Air Force.
Mhm.
So he stayed there and made a career of the Armed Forces and Air Force. Came out as a colonel. So anyway, that impressed me,
Okay. And so that was kind of one of the things that kind of drew you towards it. A
Yeah.
little bit.
That's right.
Okay.
So he encouraged it too. So
Well, I'm glad that it was a good experience for you, and thank you for sitting down and talking to me, and I've enjoyed getting your story.
I couldn't think of anybody I'd rather talk to.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you very much.
you're doing all right.
Thank you very much.
You did very good, didn't you?